Welcome to the Worth Listening podcast, where we focus on having positive and productive conversations about money. Join your host, Lauren Williams, four-time Olympian turned financial planner, as her guests share their stories about how they manage money. We aim to help you own your personal money story and feel good talking about it. Lauren will teach you that money is a tool that can help you live the life you want. You should feel comfortable listening, sharing, and communicating about it. And now, here's your host, Lauren Williams.
Hey, everybody. This week, we sit down with former NFL player Marques Ogden. After his career in professional sports, Marques experienced fast success and failure in the construction industry. He worked his way up out of an unexpected bankruptcy and now shares his stories with others, holds leadership academies, and is in the process of expanding his personal brand to a larger platform. He is the ultimate comeback story. In this episode, we talk through Marques' early days, what it was like being the younger brother of an NFL star, and how he found his own identity. Though Marques ran into some difficult times, he is by no means the stereotypical athlete gone broke. He shares what it was like running a construction company and what brought it to its demise. Let's listen as Marques shares his money memoir. Marques, thanks so much for being on the Worth Listening podcast. It has been, I can't even say what it's been trying to catch up with you, but I finally did it.
How are you, Lauren? Everything going all right?
Everything is going wonderful. I'm really looking forward to having you on the show today. I know you have a really awesome story, so let's just jump right in. Why don't we start by telling the people a little bit about where you're from, your upbringing, and mixing in that story. Tell us a little bit about your first memory of money.
So my name is Marques Ogden. I'm from Washington, D.C. Went to Howard University in Washington, D.C. Well, I got drafted to the National Football League when I was 22 years old, played for about 6 seasons between the Jaguars, Ravens, Bills. Then I came back, and then I hurt my back when I was playing for the Titans. So been around the NFL, the AFC, to be matter of fact, for many, many years. And my first memory of money is when I did an article for CNN Money, and I actually remembered I was 22 years old, and I was just drafted by the Jaguars after making the team as a rookie, the actual 53-man roster. I remember I wrote out my budget on a piece of paper in my football notebook. So this way, when I was looking at going to work and stuff like that, I always had my budget around me, my rent, my truck payment, my insurance, all that kind of stuff. So I knew how to budget money while I was in the NFL throughout my whole career.
I think that's really an awesome story that your first memory is of you being very responsible, setting up this budget, and it's opposite of the stereotype of what people say about football players. So let's go back a little bit and talk about your childhood and where that good habit might have come from. Tell us a little bit about what influences you saw around money during your childhood.
So my parents divorced when I was 8, and I was raised by a single father, both me and my brother, who also is a former NFL player. He played for 12 years, actually in the NFL Hall of Fame. And our father got his degree from Howard University, his undergrad in economics, and he got his master's in economics from the University of Maryland. So he worked for the Federal Home Loans Bank of New York for many years and worked. So he was around finance and economics and money, Lauren, for many, many years. So since I was born, I was always taught about money management, how to save, how to budget, how to plan, how to always have things in reserves. I learned that from my father growing up all my life, and that's why everybody is so surprised that I went bankrupt, because I have a degree in finance and I learned this. But as I'll talk about later on in the podcast, when you make bad business decisions and you get emotionally attached to a product and or a service that you provide to people, it can be very hard sometimes to not get fully invested, and that's kind of what happened to me when I went wrong. But I've been around money, Lauren, since birth with my father, having that kind of financial and a finance and economics background.
So back in the day, did you have an allowance? Did you guys have a weekly kind of setup? Or what was your father teaching you? What kind of conversations were being had in the household about money?
Oh, absolutely. Got weekly allowance, how to save, how to put 10, 15% towards something that you want. Try to save anywhere between 40 to 50% and have the other money that you have left over in reserve for if you really want something to have as a child or a young adult, you have that reserve money. So we always had a little bit to spend right away, a reserve, and then a real reserve that we were never supposed to touch unless it was a drastic situation. got lost somewhere or something like that. So we always had, when I was a teenager, as I started to kind of go out with my friends, that reserve came in play for like emergencies, going out with people or needing things or being somewhere where I need to get home or something like that. My dad couldn't get there, was out of town, a friend's house, whatever the case may be. But we learned about that type of stuff at a very young age, adolescent all the way through middle school, high school. Even when I got to college, when I went to Howard University, I still practiced those principles even when I was playing college football.
I think that's really cool. And I think another interesting dynamic that you mentioned is being raised by your father, having been a single father. So frequently we hear the story of a single mother and the woman usually being left behind with the children. Talk a little bit about what it means as a man handling money and any influences there that you think you specifically got from your father that are different.
I'll say this, that learning from a single dad about responsibility, how to pay bills, how to take care of yourself, how to take care of the house, how to be financially savvy was paramount because I am a male. So being raised by a father who can teach that to you, I was paying my own bills when I was 22 years old in the NFL. So I knew how to balance a checkbook. I knew how to write checks. I knew how to set up automatic draft payments. I knew how to budget and save, all that kind of stuff. So when I got to the league at 22, I had been around doing things for so long on my own, being raised by a single father and having only males in the house, that when I got out, I need to have anyone help me with bills or allocation of funds because I had learned it ever since I was basically a young adolescent.
Yeah, I think that's really dope. And we're going to go back to that in a second. But before we skip to the NFL days of you being able to manage that, and like you said, the kind of money that's saved when you're able to manage things on your own, let's go back to your college days first and talk a little bit about what that process was like, being recruited to go to school and how you made your college decision and the kind of discussions that were had leading up to you making a decision about going to college.
I only got one scholarship offer to Howard because a lot of people thought I was a junior when I was a senior, and people that looked to offer me were Maryland and Howard. And Maryland said, well, why don't you come and walk on here and we'll get you a scholarship later on. At this time, Maryland was really, really awful. So I decided to go to Howard and took advantage of that. And my head coach, Steve Wilson, came and sat in my living room and told me the whole spiel about how I could be an NFL player and all that. I really didn't believe him, but I liked his overall persona. I liked his ability to kind of connect with me. He was relatable. And I believed in him when he told me I could be a starter for him as a redshirt freshman if I got a year under my belt in the weight room. So I took the gamble, went to Howard. It ended up being true. I started as a redshirt freshman, started my whole 4-year career as offensive tackle at Howard University, had a great time, made some great friends. And in college, I decided to major in finance because I wanted to be able to work on Wall Street when I got out of college because my father had done that a little bit through the New York branch of where he worked and also through college and also through him having a life as far as working all the time in finance over by the White House in downtown D.C. So I wanted to be able to be just like him and I wanted to follow his footsteps. And I then decided to pursue finance at college.
I think that is a really cool story that you just hit on there. The idea that I'm not just a guy who was in the NFL. And so you said, I didn't have plans of going to NFL. You thought that the guy was blowing a bunch of smoke up your butt by saying you can go to the NFL. You went to college to get an education.
That's right.
And frequently people think the stereotype is that a football player shows up at college to do his due diligence and head on to the NFL. But you had a plan. Education was the most important thing to you. And then the NFL path kind of came into play. But you were already planning on, like you said, getting a finance degree. You had your life after college idea set and goal set. And so how did you end up going to the NFL world?
Well, after my junior year, right before my senior, agent started calling me. I started seeing people on people's draft boards. And my brother was in the league at that time for about 6 or 7 years. So I reached out to him for advice. And then I started to say, okay, I'll give it one full year to see what happens. I got drafted after my senior year. I was actually one of the first players ever drafted from Howard. I was drafted to the Jacksonville Jaguars, head coach Jack Del Rio. And that was an eye-opening experience because it showed me that with hard work, determination, and grit, that I could achieve what I wanted to either on the gridiron or off the gridiron. So Jack Del Rio and James Shaq Harris was actually the first black quarterback in the NFL. They drafted me down in Jacksonville with the Jaguars organization.
That's pretty cool. So tell us a little bit about what that draft process looks like. You know, you watch the draft on television as a fan and you know the players go off and they end up in their camps and then you see them on the field. But what's that process like? What happens after The phone rings. Do you need to be somewhere the next day? Sometimes they say you have to immediately report and sign something. How does that whole thing work? And who pays for all of that?
Well, basically what happens is the NFL teams pay for everything. If you are one of their draft picks, first thing that happens is after you're drafted, the media all calls you, gets on the phone. They're usually at the facility on a big kind of like conference line, and they're talking to you all questions. How does it feel to be drafted by this team? And how does it feel to be coming to our area? What do you expect to do? Are you trying to get playing time? Are you looking to start? It's just a whole bombardment of interviews from the reporters. After that, you can usually get the night off and chill where you are with your friends, things like that, kind of relax and celebrate your draft. That next morning, you're on a plane down to your team. That same evening, 9 times out of 10, you're having a meeting with the draft players and the undrafted players. Even undrafted players get flown in by the team. They put you into a hotel, then you have team meetings that night. You have a dinner at the facility. Then you get to meet your head coach and your position coaches. And then they talk to you about what's usually going to happen is that next day is the first day of rookie minicamp, or it might be a day or two later, depending upon the schedule the team sets. After rookie camp, then you're allowed to go back home for a couple days, or you can stay there in the hotel. They have a hotel for the players, drafted and or undrafted. You don't have to pay for anything. The team takes care of all of that. And then after that, vets come in and you have vet camp. And then once vet camp hits, everybody starts going through everything. Like you're working with the vets and all that kind of stuff. And you're trying to get used to your teammates, new teammates, trying to meet guys. That's when a lot of times things happen. You're going through the early hazing process. Sometimes people might want to beat you up a little bit, or they might want to put you through some stuff. It really varies team by team. And then after that, you have training camp, and then training camp starts. And then once training camp starts.
Hold on. All right, let's go back for a second. You just said hazing process, may or may not have rookie life. All right, so it's good to know that, like you said, the NFL picks up the tab for a lot of those first expenses.
That team pays for everything, flight, hotels, meals. That's unless you want to eat on your own at nighttime away from the facility, they pay for everything.
Yeah, that's a really key point because people forget about all the different things that go into this. They just think, hey, NFL players get a big check and they can handle it all. But it's good to know that initially the big check hasn't come yet in these moments, and that the team is picking that up for you. So you're not accruing those expenses. But then you talked about being a rookie, being hazed. And at some point, like you said, your first check does come in the mail and there are expenses. So talk a little bit about the expenses that you do incur as a rookie athlete, and especially those hazing expenses. And I've heard stories of players being left with big expensive dinners or those sorts of things. How do you handle that? And did that happen to you?
Absolutely happened to me. So after you make the team, then you're on your own as far as living and costs if you're a rookie. So once training camp's over, you break from the hotel. Now, once that happens, the team has people that help the rookies find apartments or things like that. Now, if you're a high enough draft pick, you can get an apartment before training camp starts, because you know that you're going to make the team for at least a year or two, if not more. If you're a lower round draft pick or undrafted free agent, you're going to probably want to stay as close to the hotel as possible because you don't know if you can make the team or not. Once you make the team, though, if you're a drafted, undrafted, doesn't matter. It's all on you. Get your apartment, you pay for that, your car, all that. Now, meals still happen at the facility. Breakfast, lunch, you can even take dinner home. They cover meals, things like that throughout the season, even the off season. Now, as far as the hazing process goes, some teams put guys through a bunch of rookie shows or comedy shows and stuff like that. That varies based upon the team. Now, at the end of the year, there is a rookie dinner where the rookies take all the veterans to dinner at a big expensive restaurant. The vets order whatever they want, and the rookie has to pay the bill. So it happened is we had 4 guys that split our bill. It was me, our 3rd round draft pick, our 4th round draft pick, and an undrafted free agent who actually made the roster as an undrafted rookie. So the 4 of us had to split a bill that was worth about $25,000 for dinner.
Wow, $25K to eat. Mm-hmm. What would happen if someone didn't have the money?
It goes off your draft stats. So if you're drafted higher, you pay more. So our 3rd rounder paid probably about $10,000. Our 4th rounder paid, I think about 6,000 or 7,000. I paid 4,000 or 5,000. The rest was left to the undrafted rookie. So it goes by your drafted position around. If the higher you're drafted or the earlier that you're drafted, the more you have to pay at the rookie dinner.
Wow, that makes sense. So there's a little bit of some coordination here to the hazing process. That's interesting.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about when you got your first big paycheck. What was that moment like? What was that feeling like? What did you do? What were you thinking?
It was fantastic. I had never seen that much money on one check. When I got my signing bonus check, I put that right away. But when I made the team and got my weekly check, I saw I was going to make weekly. I was like, wow, this is fantastic. I was making about $14,000 a week after tax, somewhere in that range. So it was great because I also lived in Florida, which had no state income tax, which was even better. So I was excited. I celebrated, but then I went out and bought myself a really nice dinner that first night. And then after that, I kind of got used to seeing the money come in and expected it. And then I said, okay, this is just more life. But after the first check, I was very excited because it was like, woo, I've actually see it now. I can see what the payday is for all my hard work.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be a really overwhelming feeling. But then it's like you said, I deserve this. I've worked hard for this. I need to reward myself. But at the same time, were there any thoughts of how do I handle all this? And so can you talk a little bit about how you put your financial entourage in play and how people approach you and what your strategy was for handling your finances at that point?
Well, honestly, to tell you the truth, I'm very fortunate. My father was in the financial planning space, so I went with his guys. It was very easy for me. A lot of guys will go through their agent advisors or things like that. So my brother went with one of his college teammates who had a business with ES Financial and got to know my brother very well. I just tell guys all the time, look, try to find who you've known the longest, that you trust the most, that has the experience and the credentials to be able to do what you're looking for. I can't give you any advice beyond that because I just don't have, there's no crystal ball. But for me, my dad and his firm, Lafayette Investments, was the perfect fit for me because my dad at the time got himself where he could do financial planning, and I went with his firm.
So tell me a little bit about the actual process of talking to that gentleman. You're younger. How old are you? Maybe 22 at this time?
Yep, 22.
22 being drafted. So you're dependent heavily on your father from a trust standpoint, but you're also an adult and this is your money that you have to handle. So how did you go about thinking of the questions, or did you feel like the guy was talking over your head and the things were complicated terms, or how did you make sure that you understood what the strategy was?
I understood because I had a finance degree and I had my father who explained a lot of things to me, make it easy. I try to tell guys that just try to have someone who is in the space, really, truly just having your best interest at heart. And again, someone that can explain it in layman terms so you don't feel that you truly are having them pulled over your head or taken advantage of.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And I think that it's really interesting that you had such a great support system around you to be able to get the right infrastructure in place from day one. Did you have any of the issues, they said there's once again the stereotypes that you're plagued with or you get the responsibility of all these different family members that are depending on you. So you said you have an educated father who's done well in his career. You have a brother that's in the NFL. But did you have that group of people around you that were coming and saying, oh, you made it, so we made it? And how did you handle that if that was something that came into play?
I didn't have that because my brother took the grunt of that because he was drafted in the first round 7 years before me. So I didn't have any of that. So I didn't have to go through any of that, thank goodness. I knew guys that did. I tell guys all the time, look, man, all you got to do is say this. You've helped me along the way. I don't mind helping you if I can plan and budget for it, but don't expect me to be your meal ticket because I have to live life after I'm done. So I tell guys all the time this, you have to remember when football is over, you want to have something to show for it. Otherwise, you just did all that stuff, took a beating up on your body for absolutely nothing.
Right. And so the whole point of earning a big way like that for a short period of time, or one of the biggest benefits of earning in such a big way like that for a short period of time, is to be able to set yourself up for the future. And I think that's really important. It's good that you were able to grasp that. Tell us a little bit about your future. What happened life after sport? How did you transition out and what happened next?
I got into a construction business. It grew very rapidly from $0 to an 8-figure business within 5 years. I was doing very well in the Baltimore area. And unfortunately for me, I took a job for a large general contractor in downtown Baltimore. I did not expect a situation to arise where I had to spend a lot of money, about $2 to $3 million in 90 days on a job site. And I ended up going bankrupt when the client did not pay my change order. And all that money was my personal money, the bank's money, credit cards. I took out lines of credit on my home, business equity lines, loan shark money, you name it. And by the time I turned around, Lauren, I didn't get paid back that change order, and all that money was gone, and I was not prepared for it, and I had to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy in the spring of 2013.
Whoa. So you just dropped a huge bomb on us there. You transitioned from sport to life after sport, did so successfully by starting a construction business. How did you decide to get into the construction business? And then what really led to everything falling apart so quickly?
The construction business was lacking a minority business that could come in and could dominate the market. So minority stands for either African American, women owned, or something of that nature. So I was a African American certified business, and I started to just take over and getting contracts and jobs and opportunity, and life was great. All of a sudden, this boom, I took on a big job for a big client that I worked for, didn't plan on having the situation arise, and next thing I know, I'm bankrupt, out of business, and I'm almost homeless 5 years ago.
Wow, and almost homeless.
Yep.
So you had this business this was something that you kind of thought of, you were interested in, it was just you researched and you found out there was a great opportunity for minority business owners, or what brought you to the construction space in the first place? And how did you decide, I'm going to run this business, I'm going to be the owner of this? There's a lot you got to figure out as a business owner.
I decided to set a plan, go after it. I didn't know construction very well, but I got a business partner who I thought knew very well how to make things happen. We had great success in the beginning. But as we started to grow, we just started to not be able to manage the amount of jobs coming in. We got overextended several times. When we got overextended, we were able to make things work. And then there happened to be a time where we couldn't make things work. And that's when I ended up going bankrupt in 2013.
Wow. And so this seems like it'll be a pretty tough time to go from, like you said, I'm finished, I've saved X number of dollars, I am using X number of dollars so that they can work for me, I have a plan life after sport. So where did you look for help at that time?
I went to the NFL league office, got approved by the Gene Upshaw Trust Fund. They paid 4 months of my bills. I was able to get myself back on my feet. And after that, Lauren, I decided to relaunch myself as a football coach, and I became a part-time janitor to augment and make enough money to support my family. And once that happened, I was able to identify through a life-changing moment that I wanted to become a speaker. And I was able to then start to tell my story to different clients. And over the last 5, I've kind of worked really hard and built a brand for myself around speaking, leadership academies, training, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm now in the process of expanding my brand to a larger platform with some help with some good people. And I'm just making those moves right now to kind of get myself where I want to be.
That is a story of a comeback. So what was the main thing you would say? Why are you so open with your story? A lot of people are embarrassed. They feel like they can't get over the hurdle. They need to hide that information. And I think that sometimes prohibits people from bouncing back. So why are you sharing your story, and what impact do you think it has to be open and honest about things like this?
If you don't share your story with people with authenticity, with honesty and transparency, you're never going to relate to people. If you can relate to people and understand that you also have been through something, trial, the tribulations, or some type of hardship, it makes you relatable. Once you're relatable, you can help people get their lives back together. When people talk down to others, or they can feel that they've only been successful, not had any hardships, people are going to see right through that it's not authentic. And once that happens, you are truly in a bad position. So I tell people all the time, tell your story with honesty, transparency, and authenticity. And you can reach people. Once you reach people, you've got it.
I think that's a great message. Last question is, I know you're a family man, so what are you teaching your daughters about money?
I'm teaching my daughters that they need to be independent. Both of them, or my 3-year-old is learning just about this life in general, but my 14-year-old, we talk about independence. She does chores. She does all types of things, makes money. She saves her money between her and her dad that sends her money. I'm always talking to her about budgeting and trying to basically have a plan and have reserves and have a backup. Just so she understands as she gets older, she's not going to need a man. She can be successful in her own right, in her career, in her profession. She could be a stand-up woman and do things on her terms. And then when she ever finds somebody that can match her, and of course I have to approve, that can match her and her drive, her desire to be the best, and her effort to push for excellence, that could be a good partner for her. But the first thing she has to do is show that she can do things on her own and that she doesn't need anybody. And once she does that, she can then find who she wants.
I think that's a great message to be sharing with your young daughters, and that it's never too early to start. I love that you're already talking to them and creating good money emotions and behavior. So that's really dope.
Yes.
All right. So we're now on our final sprint. So this is this 5 quick questions. You kind of answer snappy, not necessarily one-word answers, but
yeah,
however you feel. So first question, you got $20 in your pocket right now. What do you spend it on?
$20. That's a loaded question. You can't buy much for $20. If I got $20 left, I'm going to spend it on a good book.
Good answer. Good answer. You must live in the place with the highest cost of living. You said, what can I buy with $20?
Right, I can't buy much.
Worst advice you've ever received?
That going into construction.
Way to sum it up. Best advice you've ever received?
Become a keynote speaker.
Ooh. The best thing about being an athlete?
The desire to push for excellence and greatness and the ability to persevere and be resilient in any situation.
Yes, being an athlete teaches you so many life skills. Okay, what was the most meaningful gift you received? Who was it from and why was it meaningful?
My wife telling me 4.5 to 5 years ago that I could be successful, that I could get my life back if I get off my butt and start pushing for greatness. Otherwise, I'm always going to be getting what life hands to me, which is always going to be second best.
And then how valuable it is to have a great support system behind you and someone who is going to stick by you no matter what. So, yeah, she's dope for that.
Because everybody wants to be my friend now, but I don't have room for all that.
All right, final question. Can you share with us one thing you would like to improve about your finances in the upcoming year?
I like to be able to put more money away for retirement. And I'm now at the point, I went through a bankruptcy, all kind of crazy stuff. Now I'm starting to finally make enough money consistently with speaking and our brand. I want to start putting more money away for the future. As our brand grows, always having a better reserve, because it takes time to build in my business credibility to get those big paying jobs consistently. Now we're getting there. So I will start to get more incoming dollars through work and start doing more budgeting on a larger scale to have a better reserve in case something happens to me, like we have a lull or a short period, something like that. So I want to be able to have that reserve built up.
Yes, that is a great plan. It sounds like you had a pretty awesome emergency fund way back in the day. Like you said, your dad said have an emergency fund, and you had the super duper emergency fund. So yeah, you're working back to building that double emergency fund.
Paying for a lot cheaper then. Yeah.
And last but not least, it's your time to shine. You're standing on the podium. You are a winner for being on the Worth Winning podcast. So tell us what you're up to now, how we can support you. Shout yourself out. Go ahead.
You guys can support me by going to my website, which is www.Marques Ogden, O-G-D-E-N, publicspeaker.com. If you need a leadership coach or a keynote speaker or someone to help overall with the online program, how to manage LinkedIn or for your business, hit us up, let us know, and we could definitely look to work with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Marques, for being on the show today. We really appreciate your time, and we look forward to producing more episodes that everyone finds worth listening to.
Sound like a plan.
I hope you enjoyed listening to Marques' money memoir. Marques shared the importance of getting an education with us. Even though he ended up in the NFL, his focus was on college and on getting an education. He grew up with an understanding of finances from his father, and he put this knowledge to use throughout his life. We don't often hear the story of a single father, but Marques' dad is a great example of one, and he gave his sons a great foundation. Even so, no one is immune to mistakes. Marques lost his business and had a tough time for a while, but what did he do? He bounced back and built a successful personal brand in the process. That's right in line with our motto. You don't have to get it all right to be all right. We all make mistakes, but it's not the mistake that's crippling. It's the inability to be open and deal with the cause of that mistake that really causes us the catastrophe. You've got to be transparent. You've got to be dedicated to bouncing back, and you've got to be dedicated to getting educated. Our word of the day, counting. What? Counting, Lauren? Yes, counting. Counting is an important skill. You need to count your money. You need to count what's going on. We're counting things all day long as we go about our life. But what you should not be counting is what's in other people's pockets. And we're frequently guilty of doing just that. We spend a lot of time judging others and sometimes encouraging others to be wasteful, but a real teammate, a real friend is passionate about their friend's financial stability. Take it from me. Friends don't let friends have effed up finances. So if you're counting, count for yourself. If you're going to count for others, make sure you're doing it so that your friend can be responsible and stable, not encouraging them to do something that's not in their best interest. Thanks for tuning in today. We hope you found this episode worth listening to. If you have financial questions, suggestions for guests, or would like to share your own money memoir, please contact us through our website, worth-listening.com. All right, I'll see you soon.